Merci, Monsieur le Président. J'ai le plaisir maintenant de soutenir mon collègue, l'honorable député à l'Assemblée provinciale de Richmond Hill. Speaker, it's my privilege and honor to support my honorable colleague from Richmond Hill in this particular resolution. I'd like to, Speaker, offer a few points, probably about half a dozen or so, some of which are polite and celebratory, some of which may be somewhat more aggressive, and I hope in toto they will be received in the spirit that they're given. To begin with, I would also like to quote from the father of Western medicine, Hippocrates, who wrote in the 4th century Greece, BC, "Life is short, the art so long, experience deceptive, judgment difficult, and opportunity fugitive." And of course, from a medical practitioner's perspective, that is the struggle, the agony, and the ecstasy of the delivery of healthcare, whether it's centuries past or even in the present context. With that, I would like to acknowledge the presence and the direction and guidance of the Ontario Medical Association, who is not only ably represented today by Dr. McLeod and entourage, but also for their representation of the 26,000 physicians who deal and deliver and are really the stewards of healthcare in this province. And as a proud member of the Ontario Medical Association myself, I will use that momentarily to speak a little bit of my own family background. We've actually stopped counting the number of doctors in my family, Speaker. It exceeds something on the order of about 100. The running joke in my family that we actually have more doctors than patients. I would, with your indulgence and permission, Speaker, like to cite Dr. Qaadri, the senior, or Dr. M.K. Qaadri, my mother, who's a practicing gynecologist who was honored, in fact, by the Ontario Medical Association as a life member, founding member in 2008. And of course, we're quite busy now with the next generation, Dr. Shamsa and Dr. Shafiq Jr., who, by the way, both know how to actually give injections and have done so. They are now well on their way as pre-medical students, though they are, by the way, in grades 4 and grade 6, respectively. Now, to move from my family, I'd like to move, Speaker, for the moment to the Ontario family, and once again acknowledging the extraordinary work of our colleagues who are dispersed throughout every village, every city, every hospital, healthcare delivery facility across the province. We've treated, since 2004, more than 30 million patients in emergency rooms, almost 800,000 cataract surgeries, 110,000 knee replacements, 70,000 hip replacements. Now those, Speaker, of course, are statistics, are numbers, which of course we need to be familiar with. But we as the physicians on the ground, as part of our lived experience, are there actually managing not only the knees and the cataracts, but the people, and not only their humanity, but also their day-to-day concerns. As chair of the Social Policy Committee, Speaker, I would respectfully suggest to all who are listening to me, whether it's the government offices, our bureaucrats, others who may be listening, that it's probably important to have medical doctors, MDs, who actually know what they're doing in the healthcare field, involved at all levels of decision making. I can remember, for example, Speaker, when we had to educate individuals in this chamber and throughout our government that when you're authorizing things like the H1N1 vaccine, that is a protection, a prophylaxis to be given before the disease hits, not after. And that, I remember, was a 15-minute debate that we had. The other thing I would also say, while we certainly welcome many, many PhDs within the healthcare decision-making framework, including my colleague Dr. Maridi from Richmond Hill, I would simply say PhDs are nice, but MDs keep it human. I would also like to say that as we enlarge the healthcare team, of course physicians are very happy and encouraged to work with many members of the healthcare team, whether it's pharmacists or respiratory technicians or technologists, laboratory employees, and so on. But I think there is an underlying, perhaps I would say, ethos or philosophy that somehow you can actually deliver healthcare without doctors. And I can simply reassure you, or perhaps warn you, that that's been tried in many different jurisdictions and pilot programs across the world, and ultimately it doesn't hold. I think there's another perhaps underlying philosophy that you can health promote your way away from medical care. Now, physicians are the very first people to talk about lifestyle management, whether it's risk factor management, cholesterol, blood pressure, high salt, all the elements of what we would call the cardiometabolic syndrome. But I would just simply add, again, a warning, an admonition, speaker, that you are not going to be able to health promote your way away from medical care. That aspect needs to be fully funded and frontally managed, and not as a kind of afterthought. I would simply conclude, Speaker, by saying, with your permission, that the government has done its part. Something on the order of about 3,000 more physicians are now practicing in the province of Ontario since we took our mandate in 2003. And I would conclude with my alma mater motto, and that is from the University of Toronto Medical School, from which I had the honor and privilege and responsibility, and by the way, burden of graduating in 1988. The motto of that school, Speaker, is, and I think it injects a level of humility, either heartfelt or possibly simulated, and that is medicus servat, deus servat, and that is, loosely translated, the physician applies the dressing, but God heals the wound. Thank you, Speaker.